you can do all the advertising you want, but once you get the name of being a crook, you're a crook. So, I mean, all the marketing in the world really doesn't do a whole lot, if you're the bad guy.
What's happening, Skid Steer Nation? It's another week with another awesome interview. I've got a gentleman from Garden City, Kansas today. And believe it or not, this little small town, he's got a tie to Mr. Beast. Yes, you heard that right. The #1 YouTuber in the world. He's done work with him. I can't wait to dig in to find out all about that. He's also left the family business to start his own. We're going to dig into all that in just 1 second. Guys, if you're looking for skid steer attachments to help you grow your business and be dependable in the workplace and do great jobs for your customers, head over to skidsteernation.com. I myself, Ryan, have interviewed all the manufacturers. We've checked the quality control of the attachments. We know they're built rugged and rough and built to last and meet your expectations, which is going to give you a better ROI, return on investment, and just help you provide better services to your customers. So your next skid steer attachment, skidsteernation.com. And with that, Levi, man, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Oh, I'm excited for this. We were just talking before the show started how life just always gets in the way. I think I had a scheduling conflict and I had to reschedule on you. Then you ended up landing a fence job and had to reschedule on me. And it's been like 3 or 4 weeks in the making trying to actually get this thing recorded.
Yeah, it has. It's been a mess, but we landed it.
we got her, man. We're finally here.
Yeah.
So awesome, man. So yeah, you've got a company called UpTime LLC. You're out there in Garden City, Kansas, and it looks to me like you're, demolition, land clearing, site prep. That's kind of the core of your business. Is that correct?
Yeah. Just general dirt work. Like you said, demolition. We do primarily small, like house demos, not anything like, 3-story, 4-story, crazy big, just because it's kind of hard to do the skid steer to Mini X, but
yeah,
a lot of the smaller stuff, and then just a lot of like, some of those bigger servicers that, do major concrete pads, or they do, major plumbing installs and stuff, or electric. We do like trenching and just all the supplementary items that, it goes into it, which, they've got their backlog just because it's hard to find guys. So it's, just a lot of that smaller stuff, but there's really good money in it. So
absolutely. So would you say the majority of your customer base is like landowners, residential, or are you doing more work as like subs for larger contractors?
It's subs. Yeah. Doing subs. I've landed a couple jobs for some, personal clients, I guess you could say. But they're bigger players and, they're just kind of, wanting ponds dug or wanting fences built or wanting, kind of their hunting and their leisure stuff worked on. So it's been a lot of that, and then a lot of sub work, for the contractors, the general contractors. And then of course, just like electricians, plumbers, stuff like that, any kind of underground stuff. So,
yeah. How did you start building those relationships? I feel like that's the one struggle a lot of guys have, is like building that network and managing it.
So I would say that it's probably the hardest part of it, of course. But what was good for me is, since I was in the community already and I established myself as somebody that was willing to be helpful, from the family business to my own business, I had a lot of connections, and I just never really didn't nurture those connections. And, I always did a good job of treating people right. So when I was like, hey guys, I need some help, or I need some work, and what, they knew I was going to help them out and do a good job. So, it's, in a small community, you can do all the advertising you want, but once you get the name of being a crook, you're a crook. Once you get the name of being an a-hole, you're an a-hole. So, all the marketing in the world really doesn't do a whole lot, if you're the bad guy. And I did a good job being a good guy for so many years that a lot of people were just ready and willing, it's just really willingness to, let me do something. So it's been really good. I think the biggest thing is that, looking at jobs and looking at things when you're working for somebody is like, I got to do this, I got to do that. But when you're, you have your own business, somebody letting you do their work, they're letting you do their work is a blessing. It's like, you're like, hey, like, thank you. Thank you for trusting in me.
Levi, I couldn't have said that any better, man. Like, I went through a funk, like my parents both passed away in 9 months. And like this last summer, I was just like, I didn't want to answer the phone. I hated working. I let the team do stuff.
Yeah.
And I had to retrain my brain to be like, hey, it's a privilege to service these guys and help them grow their business. And that's how I felt beforehand. But like, that's how I had to dig out of that trough. So to hear you say they let me do this work, I just love that mindset, man. Like that humble and that gratitude will take you a long way in life.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing too is, as you just briefly touched on the mental aspect of work, there's a lot of work to start. There's a lot of work that guys need you to do. And it's a lot of people struggle with just the mental aspect of finishing a project, showing up on consistency, like the mental fortitude side of things is what a lot of people lack. And it's what, has helped me excel. It's like, when we do a project, here's the price. And then they're like, okay, whatever. It's like, okay, fine. If you don't want me to do it, fine. But having that mental fortitude of saying, this is my price, this is what we'll do, this is when we'll get it done, is very tough for a lot of people. And, and I get it. A lot of people go through a lot of stuff. And so, just it really kind of all wraps into a big bundle of like just who you are as a person and who you are as like a worker and how well you're going to do a job, and a lot of these contractors are looking at that saying like, okay, we know this guy, this kid that's getting started, is he going to show up? When's he going to, not how long is he going to be here, but, or like, when's he going to quit? So there's a lot of mental aspects that go into it. And, like you said, sometimes it's tough to, you've got a lot going on in life and life is really tough, to continue. And even, you'll make money, but after you make, 100 grand, 200 grand, doing a couple different jobs, you're like, it's just like, well, do I need to go back? Yeah. I will in 6 months, but do I want to go back?
Right.
And so just that, like I said, I say mental fortitude just because you have to fight within yourself and, and continue. And, it just takes a lot to just even do a small operation because, you live on, $5,000-$10,000 a month and you go do $20,000-$30,000 jobs 3 or 4 times a month. And you're sitting there like, I don't need the payments, or I don't need more money because I can make my payments and stuff like that. So it's, just the mental aspect of it is really what's playing a big role, in my opinion, right now, just because people just want instant gratification. And once they're satisfied, they're done for a while until they need more. So, it's tough. I get it.
I just find that I think if a lot of guys would just take a pause, take a deep breath and like look at their processes and organization on the backside that nobody else sees but them. Yeah. If you can get that shit dialed in, like the rest of it starts snowballing in the cascading effect, but when you're always chasing your tail about the bookkeeper and the this and the that, then you're going to take that same approach when you hit a job site.
Yeah. I think too, what was really nice for me coming into this is, so the scrap operation was like, we probably did at, the peak, like $8 million. And so going into this, for me, I do a job and say I make 20 grand. I'm like, okay, well, let's, we need to do some more. We need to get some more done because I'm nowhere near what I just stepped away from. Yeah. So it's been really good for me to come from a big company and to, what I'm doing, because I'm like, okay, we got to get more, got to get going, got to get back to 8 million, 10 million, got to get back to normal.
And that was a family business, right? Like that was your family's business, that scrap business.
Yeah.
How hard was it to walk away from that?
It was, at the time it was easy, but now that I understand more of running a business, I look back and I regret some of the, not necessarily like I made any really like rude comments, but comments out of misunderstanding of what it takes to run a business. And also too, like, sometimes yes and no decisions are very tough in business because, you've got a million things going on and it's hard to focus, when you've got, 5 locations and 40, 50 guys and machines. And, some of those yes and no questions, your mind is so busy that you can't just, oh, well, it's yes. Oh, well, it's no. It's, you got a lot to think about.
And they're not always black and white.
Yeah, no. Like, so
they seem black and white to you, but your dad was probably trying to think 3 steps ahead.
Man. Yeah.
And now it's a gray question. And like, how does the no affect next July?
So, So yeah, it's, looking back, it was an easy decision because of my misunderstanding of business. And, you know, what you don't realize going into your business is the hurdles you face. People, systems, access to capital, cash flow, of course, the biggest one. And what you don't plan for is not getting paid. And that's, like I did a job for some guys, tore down a couple homes, and I was like, all right, guys, I'm finished. It's like
Crickets.
yeah, I was like, so, then you hit you can't and I think this was probably towards the beginning when I got started. I had that 10,000, saved up, and I had payroll going, and I had some little stuff coming in. So I had, 12, and then 8, then 14, then 10, so you got that little cushion. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, I'm going to get this $30,000 paycheck, and then we're going to be, we're going to be good for 6 months or whatever my bills were, and wrapped up the job. And I was like, okay, guys, it's time to do the thing, or you give me the money. And they're like, no, not blatantly no, but they're just like, yeah, we'll get you paid.
Yeah.
And you just don't get paid.
It's the worst, man.
So, and then, you start to realize that nobody has to pay you when you send them a bill. They're like, well, I'll get you paid when I can pay you. And it's like, okay. And then just those, it's, and of course, like in the economy right now, I've got, huge numbers for my business, let's say it's half the company's net worth or half of the cash value in the banks out on open invoices, and you're not getting paid. And you're just like, this is terrible. So it's just a moment of realization of it takes a lot to run a business. It takes
a lot more than running the machinery.
Yeah. Then, and then sending bills, and, people just will not pay you, or people will have something wrong on their end and want paid, and you've got to prove, it just there's so much time and effort in things that you just don't realize you're going to have to do.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, or I haven't said yet, but it's been good. It's, things have been really good. I've got the uptime, and we're doing the dirt work and the demos, and it's kind of slowing down now going into winter, which I think today was the first batch of ice we had. But there's snow removal and other stuff to do, and your first year you don't have those contracts, and typically those are 1 to 2 year contracts. So going into a place saying, hey, let's get this snow gone, they're like, well, it's gonna have to be next year. So
Yeah.
your first, I would say that your first 2 years is a huge hurdle, and just save your money up and expect not to get paid, if I was giving anybody any advice.
So I've worked with quite a few startups like in their first year in business, and they all start getting into like, oh, we'll do snow removal this winter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, two things. One, they're under contract. You're not getting any contracts. It's September. You don't think this was taken care of 6 months ago? I'm like, and two, you don't even have your business fully developed and optimized yet. Like, we don't need to be adding other services that really you're just looking as a way to pad the bank account in the winter. Right. So I was like, focus on your business, spend all of your free time dialing in, whether it be your marketing strategy, your website, your branding, like whatever it is you need to do that first winter. I'm like, and go call every landscape and lawn care company in the area and just ask to be a subcontractor. You don't have to worry about billing. You don't have to worry about finding the clients. You got to find one guy that says, here's 10 lots.
Yeah. Help me out.
And like, yeah, you don't make as much money, but you don't have any of the headaches, the stress, the invoicing, and you can focus on your dirt business. So in the spring, you can hit the ground running.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the biggest thing that I'm doing now is just picking up the phone and saying, hey, I'm Levi. I do dirt work. I do this. I do that. And of course, right now we're going into winter. So, everyone's like, well, I'm not setting septic tanks and frozen ground, which the winter's tough, and on your first year, if you say that you go buy all this equipment in October because you've, had a couple jobs thinking you're going to do dirt work or you're going to do snow clearing, or, there's a rude awakening. And to be 100% honest, I do a lot of different things. I've got the trucking business, which I've got 4 trucks. got one driver, but we're gonna find some more drivers. uh, I had some trouble with my insurance guy, and we can't insure some of these drivers because they got 3 violations in the last year, and they're like wrecks at fault or speeding, or so they're uninsurable. And quick note for the trucking guys: if you buy a truck, a brand new truck, and you got a payment on it, you have to have full coverage insurance. Well, if you don't have a driver, or say the truck's broke down or whatever, you still have to have full coverage insurance on it. So I mean, it's an uphill battle for anybody that's going into trucking. So luckily, I've got one guy running enough to make the payments on all that stuff. But I got the trucks, and then I travel and do troubleshooting for the scrap metal industry. So I make some really good. I do one job, and it takes care of my payments for my equipment for the month. Yeah. So being able to supplement income for different things is really big. But if I were to give anybody an advice, is it go into a trade and then get a skid steer? Be able to do septic, be able to do tree trimming, be able to do asphalt, be able to do something that you have a skilled trade in, that you can promote and do jobs for, that you then need equipment for. I jumped in with equipment before I went into a skilled trade, and now I'm looking at different trades of what route I'm going to finalize in. So if I were to give anybody an advice, I'd say focus on a specific trade, because the money's in the trade right now.
And we call it the niche, you call it the trade. It's all the same thing, right? Like you can't be a jack of all and be good at any of them, or be known as the authority in any of them. And let's be honest, Levi, like let's say you dial in and all you do is utility and site prep work for new constructions. If somebody calls you to fix a culvert, you can still tell them yes if you have time to do it. You're just not promoting yourself and being known as the guy that fixes culverts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the big thing too is, the money's in doing like the work for the cities, some of those bigger projects. So, they're spending, for example, if you have a shop or even your house, if you're looking for bids for a project, you're looking for cheap, you're looking for, quality, and, you're spending your money. The city is spending someone else's money, and when people spend other people's money, whether it be insurance,
they're real good at it,
or government, anything, the bids always are, everybody tacks on a little bit extra. So, you got to get certified in a trade where you can start putting these bids out on some of these bigger jobs. So,
do you use the SAM website?
I don't know what that is.
So the U.S. government has a website. I don't know if it's still named this, but it used to be sam.gov. And once you get registered with that, like you can see every procurement bid in the United States. You can filter it out. You can do all, like, you can filter it out. You can do all that. Find them just for your area. Put in specific keywords. It'll send you email notifications every day.
Yeah, I did. I don't know which one it is. It's like BidNet or something. But they post I think they'll post the city, but they won't let you have access to the information. Well, we're in a small community type of area where I know who to call if I see, it's for the city of Liberal. It's like, oh, okay, well, hey, Danny, or it's for Dodge. It's like, oh, hey, Karen, like I see you guys got a bid out, or what is it? So, I haven't felt the need to pay for anything, because there has been local work. But of course, going into the winter, there's, you're always looking for something, whether the city wants to have some help with some snow removal, or have some help with some, asphalt work, whatever it may be. Yeah, that's definitely something I would, or something that I would be willing to do. But I just use the BidNet and those websites that are, you pay for them, but I can see it for free because I know, I know a lot of people in the community.
Yeah, you're getting the base information for free. You're just not paying for the details, but in your small area, you know who to find.
Yeah, I think it helped too, coming from scrap, because everybody's got scrap. HVAC guys got it. Yeah, plumbers got it. Guys that are tearing out concrete, they got it. So, I ran into a lot of these people that I work with already. So me being a sub for them was pretty simple, to be like, oh, hey, well, Mike, what do you got for me? Can you put me on something? I've got a dead week in 2 weeks. Let's give me some work, feed this dog a bone of some kind,
So you're saying you're born on third base? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just, like if I would have been, you know, you can shoot yourself in the foot. It could have been a real Achilles heel that people did know me. Had
Mm-hmm.
I, made the wrong impression or been the bad guy. So
Right.
it's sometimes not good that people know you.
Well, I think that
For
depends on
some,
the person
yeah,
that you are, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah, for some, it may not be good that people know you.
yeah. But I
So
mean, that's where it's so important to have a good grasp on your values and the type of person you
yeah,
want to be and the people you want to work with. I mean, so you're not that person.
yeah, yeah. You don't want to be that guy. We'll just call it that guy.
You want to be,
So
yeah, that
you don't
guy.
want to be that
I
guy.
know a guy.
Yeah.
I know a
So
guy. So I'm going to have to assume that through your connections with the scrap industry is how you got connected with Mr. Beast.
yeah,
And like this is so enamoring to me. Like, how's a guy starting off in this industry with a background in scrap get found, get promoted? Like, I want to know all the details of like how in the world you ended up or your family ended up working with Mr. Beast for one of his YouTube videos.
yeah. So to give a precursor, so we had the yards, and the yards were kind of in a circle, and they were in an area where there wasn't the right type of processing to get the material. You'd have to ship the material a long ways. So we were setting up this facility to be a processing facility. That way, instead of the material going out, we just had all the feeder yards, and we centrally located to where the processing facility was. So we invested into this big, heavy processing equipment. So the guys that sold us a portion of that equipment, the actual shredder that shredded the Lamborghini, they knew that I had installed a different portion of it and knew a bunch of different aspects. So they were like, "Hey, Levi, Mr. Beast called us and was looking for. He wants to shred a Lamborghini." I was like, "All right, cool, yeah." And they're like, "Hey, could you make something like that happen?" I was like, "Yeah." Like, but I didn't know what they wanted, but I was like, yeah, like
I'll figure it
the
out.
answer is yes.
Yes.
So, and I think this was mid-year. I don't remember the specific dates, but anyways, let's just say it was May. So May, I say yes, and May 1st, I say yes. Anyways, I get a call from I don't know if I can share his name. I'll just call it. We'll just say this guy. So this guy from Mr. Beast's team calls me, and he's like, "Hey, talked with these guys, and they said that you can do this, and we're kind of thinking that." And I was like, "Sure, like whatever you guys want to do. It doesn't matter to me. Like everything has a price. Like just let me know." And so he's like, "Okay, cool, yeah, all right. Well, let me talk with my team, and we'll see, kind of when we want to do this or whatever. We want to come out and fly out and do like a preliminary video." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." So he's like, I was like, "Okay, so when you want to do this?" And he's like, "Oh no, we'll be there tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay, like I sure." Anyways, so they fly into Fort Worth, which is it's just a short flight to Garden City from there. Garden City is like a regional airport, so you go to
Mm-hmm.
like a Fort Worth or a Denver, or Kansas City, and then you can go anywhere. So they flew into Fort Worth and just got pelted with hail and rain and couldn't take off for like 4 days. So I was like, and he's texting me like, "Oh, we're gonna be there, I swear." And I was like, "Okay, like you got me." Like, okay, cat's out of the
Where's
bag. Where's
Ashton
the
Kutcher?
cameras? Yeah, okay, I got punked. Where's Ashton Kutcher? So I was kind of hanging out, and he kept texting me, and he's like, "We're on our way. We're on our way." I was like, "All right, when you get here, you get here." So they show up on I think it was a Thursday, because there's like dollar beers at a local bar, and we had gone out that night. So Thursday rolls in, and these guys finally show up, and I have a couple cars there to shred, and they've been sitting. And so they finally show up, and we run the cars through there, and it's still pouring rain. It's just horrible out. And I think we ran like two cars, and I'm like, "All right, cool, this is good, let's do it." And I was like, okay, like They're like, yeah, let's do it. I think we'll like probably like a month or something. We'll come back and we'll shoot the deal. And I was like, okay. And they're like, okay, so we want this. And I was like, oh man, it's like 90 days worth of work,
Oh,
for
wow.
me and my 3 or 4 man crew. And so, of course, we go out that night and they fly home the next day. And it was kind of like a day or two where I didn't hear nothing. And I was just going to let it sit. And the guy he reaches back out to me and he's like, hey, man, like, what's going on? What's, this, what's that? I was like, well, I'm kind of waiting for you guys. He's like, oh, no, it's good. Like, we're good to go. They wire me the money for the first half of what we did. And I said, sure, fine. And I think it was probably like 20 to 25 days, we worked probably 18, 19 hours a day, just building this massive conveyor belt, the stand, doing some sides. I had like 5 contract welders come in the last 2 or 3 days because right before the shoot, they send out I think it's the creative team. And the creative team looks at it and they say, no, we want to move that all the way over there. Or we want to cover this entire place in green paint or whatever it is. Their job is to say things that make sense for the shot. And it's the other guy's job to say, how are we going to move something that took 20 days to put together, even an inch, let alone on the complete opposite side? So you have these guys showing up the day before and they're like, hey, we want to cover this entire thing in 1/4 inch plate. And so I've got a good connection with like a bunch of welders. And so I called up my one of my welder guys. I was like, hey, you guys want to make a whole shitload of money in 3 days? And they're like, yeah. So I had like 5 guys and all their trucks lined up doing welding, man lifts, and they worked, 15, 16, 17-hour days, knocked it out. And so here comes let's back up. Best part ever. So when everything kind of was like okay, like we're actually doing this, it was about a week and a half before the final like set where they ship the car out. So the car gets here, and my neighbor, they take it out of a truck and set there. My neighbor takes a picture of it, and so I get calls like, "Oh, scrap must be nice,"
Levi's making too much damn money.
Yeah, I was like, "Get out of here," So everybody bugging me, and anyways, good stuff. Good. That was a good week and a half.
I'll tell you what, man, just getting a Lamborghini, like, maybe that's what guys should do in small towns, like rent some exotic car and have it delivered to your house for 3 days, because people will talk, the whole community will talk about it, right? Like, what a marketing strategy. Honestly, outside the box.
It would work. It'd work. So, but yeah, so good times. Then, they came out and we relaxed, kind of going into the deal. Let me cancel that. We relaxed going into it. The week, of course we had all the welding to do and all that stuff. But since I brought in contractors, it was just like, hey, you guys just do you. And those guys were friends. And so they worked really good as a team, communicating and working. When you get sometimes like 3 different groups of guys working together, it's like, no, like we're next. And it's like, and so these guys were like, hey, no, like they were all in a tight knit group and just hammered it out, which I've got a really good connection to a guy here in town, and he does a lot of welding. So anyways, the day of the shoot, actually, let's go the night before the shoot, people are already showing up in town. And I think Jimmy was in town, but I don't remember now. But anyways, people started gathering around the yard, trying to get in, all that stuff. And we have a full set there, and the car is, sitting out. And so I've got like this old 81 Ram Charger. Like everybody's got that wagon that they have, just an old whip. And it's just like my little cruise around deal. Anyways, slept on the back of it that night. And I got like 2 hours of sleep because I didn't want anybody coming in, friggin' breaking mirrors off, running, just, people. And so me and one of the original guy, he slept in a car and I slept right there on the set, just, making sure, because it's Jimmy's a pretty big deal. So, kids be out all night and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So just hung out, took like a quick couple hour nap, and then we shot just all day, and it was blazing hot. And it was a cool set. The set was pretty, with like all the camera crews and the what they call as like talent would be like Mr. Beast's talent or Nolan's talent, or they just call it like that individual. It's a production, which was kind of cool to see. Was like the behind the scenes aspects of everything. And I would say that one of the biggest takeaways from watching it and all, the things, it's like the actual recording of it is really no different than, what other people are doing. They just took the time to do the right angles, the right depth perception, the right audio.
Yeah. I mean, there's all in the preparation, right?
Yeah, there's nothing more to it than get as many angles as you can of the shot and then go back and find the best one. And so it was cool to see it because it gives you a very in-depth perception of what everybody else is doing. It's like I look at some people's videos and I'm like, okay, super simple setup. I can see the audio, I can see the video, I can kind of perceive what's going on. So it was just kind of cool to see an actual, production. In Garden City, you don't see. In Kansas, you don't see productions. Hollywood, you see productions. But Kansas, it's like you see the finished product. So seeing behind the scenes is really cool.
I bet, man. I bet. So, and did you guys just have a massive crowd like trying to?
Oh, there was like
the whole day.
There's like 3,000 or 4,000 people in the lot to the north of us, and then there's like people sneaking in the cornfield to the south. It was wild, but it was good time. It was a good time. I think the best time we had was probably that week of the shoot. They had dollar beers again on Thursday, and out we went. And so it was a good time to sit down and get to know everybody from the cast and the production. Of course, Jimmy wasn't there, and some of the main focuses at the local bar. But it was fun to sit down and chat with some people.
Oh, I bet,
so,
man.
It was a good time.
Yeah, like I watched the video after you told me about it, and like I saw the conveyor, and you watch him dumping in the vending machine and all the other stuff, but. Like I never once thought that you had to build that conveyor or that you had 30 days of prep to get that thing ready. And like I've heard he spends an enormous amount of money on every video.
We spent a lot of money, which I mean, when you are, there's two types of projects. There's time-based projects, and then there's projects that are not time-based. It's financially based. And that was a time-based project. So he's like, I need it done in 30 days. It's like, okay, let's open up the checkbook. We'll get it done, know? And it was, I would say that, knowing some of the expense behind it and looking at some of the other projects, he makes good money. Jimmy's not struggling. He makes it work.
No. And I remember watching an interview with him, and he was talking about like the first 2 years that he was trying to crack YouTube's code.
Yeah.
And like this dude literally spent 8 to 10 hours a day studying every YouTube video he could study, every thumbnail, every word in the descriptions, how the titles were written. Like he's not a success by accident.
Yeah, no. He has done his research. I would say I have no criticism of Jimmy. He does a great job at what he does. I would say that the new age is Jimmy's worth $1 billion. And it's like, okay, well, how so? Well, his brand. It's like, okay, show me on paper what I can go buy for $1 billion from Jimmy. I know he's got some nice facilities he shoots in. I know he's probably got vehicles and different things, but it's like, show me the real estate. Show me the building. Show me the equipment. So, like the valuation that some of these individuals knew it, some of these younger kids, like, oh, he's worth 20, he's worth 100, he's worth 50. It's like most of the guys out there say that, like, I know some electricians and I know some plumbers making, $1 million bucks a year. Those guys are making money, and it's like, I get Jimmy's making a lot of money. Don't get it wrong. And he does have a lot with his, like his chocolate and his Beast Burgers and like all those different things. Like that's where the money's at. But
again, like I'm looking at that just saying there's a lesson in that. right? Like
Yeah.
this guy
Yeah.
ate shit for 2 years
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and grinded every day
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
figure
He's got
out
what
how to get
he
to
earned
the
it.
top. And like as a business owner, it's like do the hard work, man.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
figure
Yeah.
out how to write that
Earned it.
Facebook post if you think that's what you need for your business to get to the next level, you know?
Yeah. And he did a good job of focusing on the attention, because once you have the attention, it's like, I think there was a post or an article of some sort that was talking about The Rock, and like he has a $3 billion Ciroc. I don't remember what label it is, some wine or alcohol of some sorts.
It's a
So I think Jimmy
tequila.
kind of took the same
Mhm.
approach, where it was like, if I have the attention, I have the customer base, and I have this, then I can sell them something that will make me serious money: Beast Burgers, chocolate, whatever it may be. And so I can see where, some of the overinflated verbal, like things like that the newer generation talks about get a little overinflated on the valuation. But with what he has going on in the restaurants and the, branding and all that stuff, he's not doing too bad.
No, but
He's
I think
doing
there's
pretty good.
lessons for us little guys to learn from
Yeah.
people that like have done that, right? Like
Yeah.
one, do
And I
the
think,
work. Don't
I
shortcut the
think,
process.
yeah, yeah. I think too, and I don't remember what motivational speaker said. There's so many, everybody's so motivational now, but they say that you're not that far from your goals and your dreams and in the different things that you have. And I think Jimmy's a perfect example of the misconception that some people have, that it's that far away. Once you
Yeah.
focus on something, and even like my family's business, I think we probably in 10 years probably did, got to 10 million with some different steps and no missteps and just different things. A 50 to $100 million valuation in 10 years, even for a plumbing business, a scrap business, an excavation business, or a general contracting business. It's not that hard, even if you start it from the ground up with the right perception of your abilities and your value and all the different things that you can do. It's really just based on, just that your understanding of, or even just a misconception of how big or small you are. It's like, for me, it's like, okay, great, I got a skid, I got this, and if I do $1 million this year, well, that's a tenth of what I was doing. And so it's like that misconception of like, oh, hey, you're actually doing good. It's like, no, I'm only a tenth of where I need to be. For Jimmy, I'm only a tenth of where I need to be at 100 million. So I think it helps for people to learn the mindset, and kind of even be around people that have that, like, hey, I'm nowhere where I need to be, or no, we're not close. $1 million is nothing. And I think it's good to an extent to be around the people that are always like more in your younger years. Once you get older, I think it's just time to cash out, and your family. I think your family really needs your wisdom. It's like my dad, for example. The role that he plays, for us now is like, I call him up and I say, hey, Dad, I'm thinking about another skid steer. I'm thinking about another mini X. I'm thinking about a bigger excavator. And he's like, well, how long is the economy going to be bad? Okay, if you buy this big excavator, what work are you going to put it into? It's like those questions that you don't ask yourself because you're like, I'll figure it out. And it's like, yeah, you can figure it out to an extent. There's limitations. And so I think that that value that you can bring in your older years is to say, hey, look, hold up, or hey, full gas. Economy's in a great deal, full gas, and sell at the top. So it's interesting to see, kind of like the progression of things, and even like all these older entrepreneurs who have made their money and they're selling, or they're doing different things. It's just interesting to watch them exit a market and then enter a completely different market, So I
The
don't know.
most successful ones enter different markets and they bring a new perspective to it.
Yeah, it's a really odd dynamic to be starting a business right now. I think I was talking with one of my guys, and he's like, I think you're good at doing business. I think you just got in it at the wrong time. And my response to him was, I don't think it's the wrong time because I had a guy, which we'll talk about. I had a guy who owes me like 40, like I said, 50 grand. That's like 49,000 that I got to sue. And I think it's the perfect time to get in business because when you're starting out, you really don't have anything to lose. And I would say you don't really have any equity to lose. If you've got, millions of dollars worth of properties and equipment partially paid off, you got something to lose. But if you got, $1 million worth of equipment that you've only made 5 payments on, it's like, it's like you're not losing massive equity. You're losing, you could lose your equipment, but you're not losing 15 years of payments, So
Yeah.
I think it's just, and so that's what I told him. I said, I think it's a perfect time. There's great lessons to be learned. Some of these lessons that I'm learning, with people that owe me money, it may be crippling. It may not be, some people may pay, some people, you just don't know. In business, it's really difficult because you think you're in a good position, and one person or the people you rely on, the good customers, there goes your cushion in an instant, so it's just an odd deal. And an odd time to be. It's just business is just tough.
Levi, I just love it, man. Like you've just got like this laissez-faire, nonchalant, like it is what it is. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. Just go out and do your best and hope to God they pay you.
Yeah, what can you do? You can't skip out on good jobs, and and most people have a good reputation. The markets have been good. People have either forgotten about people's wrongdoings or their past doings. And so you're out there doing these big jobs and then people just don't pay, because honestly, they can't, and you can't stop working. You can't, stop taking on jobs.
Right.
When you don't know. I mean, there's some indicators and indications that you can have. And that's why I would say that's good with the cities and good with the, some of the government work that you could get into. But some of the contractors and even some of the people that you work for personally be 90 days out on payment. You could be forever out on payment. I think so when I first got started, I think everybody thinks this way. You're like, I got my main, this is what I'm doing, all right, I got to get some passive income going, and so I went out and spent, I think, $10,000 on an end-dump trailer, and I said I'll start renting out trailers. So I got my first rental, and I sent it down, or somebody came and picked it up, and it went down to Texas and moved loads for a couple months. And I made it was $1,400 a month was the rent on the trailer. And, it's good money for a $10,000 investment. Well, they sent it back and they'd laid it over. And so I was like, what? And it's inoperable. Cylinders bent, gate was blasted off the back, whole sidewalls bent, tarps toasted. They tried to put it back with screws. Well, anyways, I said, hey, this is, $10,000 worth of damage. And, you guys need to fix this. And the text I got more or less said, prove it. No, he didn't. It's like, oh my gosh. So you think, you can divest or even people that, put their money into homes and think that, I'm going to rent this thing out and I'm going to do this with my extra income. Well, you buy this house and your payment's $3,000 a month and your tenant says, I can't pay you.
Yeah.
You can't just take their stuff out.
And let's be honest, Levi. Let's be honest. There's no such thing as passive income unless you've leased out your property and they're drilling oil on it and you're getting a check out of the mailbox. Like that's it. Like Airbnbs, they're low work, high risk, low work, but it's not passive.
Yeah, nothing is. There's different types of effort, and it's either physical labor or it's you've put your time and your mental effort into it. Like you're just trading off. And so the lessons have been, the trailer one, fine, $10,000. Say I scrap the trailer out and I make $3,000 on it, I lose $7,000. So be it. The fuel lesson with the $50,000 for the guy, that's going to be a tough bullet to bite. That one, we could dive into that. It's a good story. So leaving scrap initially, I didn't want to do excavation, or I knew I would do demolition, but I didn't really want to do excavation because I didn't know how to do some of the major portions of it, like pad building, which I mean, anybody can go out there and spread some gravel around, but there's different like Terracon specs and different things for jobs or whatever it is. So, I didn't know some of the core, even like doing like drainage, or not like just land drainage, but like setting drain pipe, or like doing French drains, or just the different aspects of things that I knew that I needed to know, that I couldn't just go, well, we'll see how it goes, like you can with grading somebody's backyard. But you can always add some more dirt. So I didn't have that knowledge in those aspects. So I was like, okay, well, and about a year before I left, I had been tracking fuel. I don't remember. Do you remember when fuel was like $1.10 a gallon?
I mean, vaguely. I remember I bought my diesel truck in January of 21. And like, I remember in March or April, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Diesel's like $2 a gallon.
Yeah. So I had started getting into fuel just right about that, a little bit before, right about that time. Well, red diesel out of Texas was like 79 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do I get that? How do I contract that? How do I lock that price in? Because that fuel's free. It's cheaper to run a generator, for massive companies than it is to even, connect it to the grid. So the math was inverse, where diesel was cheaper than you could run a generator at your home, cheaper than you could, connect to the power company. Not really, but close. So I was like, okay, well, this is obviously an area where I can make some money, because I can understand when something is underpriced. Started diving into it, looking into some of the contracting and some of the different things, and which ultimately led me to buy a tank, which led me to broker some loads to some people. And so things were good. I got in contact with some of the terminals and some of the, like, there's like two layers of brokers. Basically, you got your terminal, you've got your dispatchers, and then you've got guys like me, and then you've got your end users, or, whoever it is. So got in there and got a real good connection with the second layer of people that do dispatch. And so I was able to make 5 cents. So 5 cents on 7,500 gallons is what, like $400 or something? Let's just say $500. So in a transaction, when fuel's $3 a gallon, you're spending like 23.5. So 23,500 bucks, but you make $500. Well, I went to the bank and said, hey, I'd like to grow this business, and I'd like to have you guys factor these invoices, which basically means, like, I say, hey, bank, this guy owes me 23,000. You can take 1% of it. I make $270, bank. You make $230. The guy pays the bank back. So the bank was like, well, we don't like fuel, because if the fuel's used, there's no asset to collect. There's no truck to repo. There's no, TV to take off the nightstand, So I was like, oh, fine, whatever. I'll do it. I'll be fine. So I just set it up where I was, and this is what I was talking about, where I was like, let the bank be the bank. So
yeah.
So the what I did is I finally had made some money, collected, that 50 grand I had, kind of saved up over time, and kind of had cushioned, and from brokering and just doing different jobs. And I've always been a cheap ass. So I've always, been saving money and just sticking it in the bank, because I just don't. I spend probably $3,500 a month, and I'm just always cheap. But anyways,
you're content. Yeah, good.
So anyways, saved up all this money, worked all this time, sold this guy a load of fuel, and it was like $20,000. And then I sold him another load back to back, and he said, I'll get you paid. Like, cause he's like, hey, I need 2 loads like a day later. I said, fine, sure. So I sold him $44,000 worth of fuel, and he didn't pay that. So it was set up where I have to pay in 10 days from the point of like me ordering it. Well, my customer is set to pay in 5 days. Well, there was really no penalty other than like, hey, it's $200 if you don't, pay me. Well, it's $200 on a $23,000. No. So there's really no incentive. So here comes 30 days, and I'm not paying them out the money. Well, I just shut off all my selling, all my customers, everything. I ain't got the money. If another person does this to me, then I'm at jeopardy with the people that I'm brokering through, which I actually did talk to them probably about 15 days ago. And I told them the whole situation. They're like, hey, thank you for not, for stopping your business to not ruin your reputation with us. Like, hey, thank you you got burned. but not burning us with it, which I really couldn't have, burned them. But they were just like, hey, thank you for being a good guy to us, shutting your business down. Sorry to hear that. Sucks for you. But hey, thank you for not putting us out online. And I said, thanks. You're welcome. Thanks for the pat on the back. But anyways,
because at night when I'm trying to go to sleep, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm like, I really hope the fuel company doesn't get screwed.
They're okay. I can sleep now.
They'll be okay.
So, anyways, I think we're 4 or 5, 6, probably 6 months in, maybe 5 months in, and him and I have maintained a good relationship. I'm not one to go and cuss somebody out, but it's like, dude, like you've taken my money. And at certain points he said, hey, I'm at the bank, I'm sending the money, and then, it doesn't show up. And it's like, all right. And once it kind of got to that point, I was like, okay. And so I called up one of my friends who's a lawyer, and he said, yeah, man, you'll probably get about 20 grand out of this whole deal by the end of it. And I was like, so luckily I have in my contract that he originally signed that he's a personal guarantor. So he's personally liable for any, he can't hide behind a corporate veil of any kind. And then also he pays for my attorney's fees. So I got 2 really big details signed in a contract. So if anybody's signing contracts, there's 3 things you want: your attorney's fees, you want a personal guarantee, and then you want them to abide by the laws or the jurisdiction to be in your town. Like you don't want to have to go travel to Oklahoma, to Wisconsin, to sue somebody. You want them to have to
like your state.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called, but it's like you want it to be in your local community so you can sue them right out of your back door. You don't have to travel. And that's one of the things I'm having. Well, with the trailer that the deal they rolled over or they laid over, I'm actually suing them in Texas because in small claims you can go up to 10,000 versus in Kansas is only 4,000. So it works to an advantage, but I mean, it's a bad deal either way. So anyways, the guy that does me fuel money actually had to get a lawyer. And what sucks about lawyers is like $250 an hour, which I get it. And you're not guaranteed that you'll get paid $50,000. They may say,
you get paid $1,
not a dime. And so
you go bankrupt.
So when you set up, since he signed a personal guarantee, and I imagine you can personally file bankruptcy, I imagine too. But since he signed a personal guarantee, he can't bankrupt his company. Right. So, at least I can reach past, that first layer of protection and say, hey, you owe me whatever. And the judge may rule that, okay, he has to pay you back at $500 a month. $1,000 a month is what is it called when they issue a judgment? That may be what it is. You may get $500 a month for 100 months. So, and then what I did not understand is when you're doing business, there's no guarantee of getting paid in certain trades. So what, honestly, Mike, going forward, taking all these things in, it's like the trades are tough because there's no guarantee of anything. You could do a $150,000, $200,000 job, and people are just like, yeah, I mean, heck, you could do that for a church, and they could be like, well, we're kind of trying to gather up some money here. It's like, oh my god.
And that's where I think that's where it's important to have like project-based billing, like phases.
Yeah.
Deposits up front, phase 1, invoicing every 10, 14 days. So there's no reason that any contractor should be carrying the net for the whole project.
For that long. Yeah. And if I were to give anybody any advice, is do that. You got to stay, get paid for the materials weekly. I would say, weekly, daily, biweekly. Yeah. The second you can get a check, go get it. And so,
break your estimate up that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's very, very beneficial to understand, that I don't, it's okay to get out a little bit on a payment, but on more than 25% of it is never good, and also people too. I think, the biggest thing, the lesson that I learned, this early on is that people will run their business off of your back. And and I'm always like thinking of, ways that people are trying to screw me just so I can think ahead and, even just think in more depth about the situations that I'm in to avoid them in the future. I don't know that because everybody thinks that, well, I would never do that, so they're not going to do it. Looking at the situation that I'm in with fuel, it's like, well, honestly, that's kind of a good way to get funding for your business. To run it off the backs of everybody else. And it's like, all right, sue me and come get me if you can.
Yeah.
Hell, you may get a free loan, or you might, have to pay it back $500 a month over 100 months. So I'm not going to say it's creative finance, but I'm going to say I'm just going to say, people will do anything to get ahead.
Yeah.
So, which I'm glad I learned it now. And I mean, 50 grand is a lot of money, and that's a bite to the shorts, but it's not 500, it's not $1 million. And, it gives me, just a different piece of the set of armor that I'm going to wear as a contractor, as an individual doing business, to be like, yeah, no, that's not how we're going to do this. You pay up front for anything that will be consumed. If it's firewood, you're paying up front, buddy, because once you burn it up, it's gone.
It's gone.
If it's charcoal, pay up front.
Yeah.
So
no, I love that, man. I love that.
Good stuff.
It is, man. It is. So, wow, I don't even know where to go from there. Like, that's
yeah. Just pass me a drink.
Yeah, it's about that time, isn't it? Beer. You get dollar beers down there today? Or can we just come to you?
Yeah. So, but some really good lessons, and I made some really good connections. And I would say that just, maybe it helps somebody. One of the reasons that I'm so laid back with everything is everybody really is doing the best they can, and you're going to have those wins and you're going to have those losses, and they may look, detrimental, and they may look like the end, but who is going to take 50 grand from me again?
Nobody.
But yeah, ain't nobody. And like nobody. I said, that lesson is what builds, multi-million-dollar CEOs, what builds, multi-$100 million, operations that people run, and really craft individuals into who they need to be, is those lessons that are just, that you don't, it's not even that you forget the situation. You may forget, I may forget it here in 20 years that somebody took 50 grand from me and the guy's name was X. And it was, I went to this attorney. I'm going to probably forget all that. But what will be ingrained into who I am and how I operate is, no, you don't. It's like, no, I don't loan people money on stuff that there's no asset value. I don't do that. I'll forget the situation. But
let's be honest, Levi, there's a reason the bank has their guidelines. Yeah. And it's not like they just sat around like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do, like, they've been burned somewhere. Yeah. On every guideline, every guideline's created because of an issue that's been arised, and they've been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing too, is that was another lesson that I learned that is going to be really beneficial to me, is being able to learn from others' mistakes. And when they're telling me something, being able to hear it. Like, no, we don't loan on assets or consumable assets. If I go into a situation and say it's, a dirt work guy, and he says, well, we don't put materials out in January through March. And it's like, those things, that stuff starts to resonate. And it's like, oh, hey, why? You begin to be able to understand to ask questions about things that you would never even have assumed. Absolutely. Well, it's like, well, we don't put materials out because it's going to rain, and it's going to rain for 3 months. And we can't install those materials and send out a bid. And so we've got, $100,000 worth of 12-inch pipe sitting there, and, or, $50,000 worth of copper to install. And, the sun comes out, and here comes all the, the crackheads. So I just, now you start to hear and you start to listen. So I would say that, I'm not happy about the situation with the money, but honestly, you pay for your education no matter what way you do it. And it's
100%.
Yeah. So it's going forward. The money that I have has got a tight grip on it, and also too, you begin to learn to, understand money a lot better. And, and money's a really good teacher. So it's not been fun, but it's been educating.
Yeah. I mean, I went to college for, well, don't laugh, 7 years. They had a lot of dollar beer nights there.
I went for 6.
Yeah. But I'll be honest. So, like, Levi, like, everything that I've learned in business has been straight from the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
I never once looked back. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that marketing teacher talked about, or, ooh, what would I do without first in, first out accounting principles? Like, no. It's not real world specific, man. Like it's not until you go out there and do it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
they
where
tell
you
you
get better.
too. Yeah. Well, they tell you too. Well, you just make sure you record your conversations or whatever it is. And you track and you write in your notebook and you're like, ha, got them. And then the judge is like, okay, yeah, 50 months, $1,000 a month. It's like, that's 4 years.
Right.
And the guy walks and the guy keeps his business. Or I'm just painting a picture of hypotheticals that
Sure.
I mean,
but like even
so
for you, like even like you talked about doing site prep. I don't care how many YouTube videos you watch, how many books you read, how many mentors you speak to, until you go get in a machine and actually do it.
Yeah.
It's all hypothetical. It's all, it's all just hypothetical or just it's not use-based knowledge. It's
And I would say you could go in like the adverse direction of that and say, guys, like, hey, go out there and try these trades. Go, to an extent, get out there and do it, because even what you're reading and what you're trying to educate yourself on is far from what you're going to run into. So don't be afraid, or don't think, well, I don't know how to put a door in. I don't know how to put a window in. I don't know how to do this. If you stand behind your work and you fix, and you make it right, and you're going to learn along the way. And so just get out there and just do and do and do. And, one day you'll be bored of it and you'll be, master at your craft.
Yep.
So
that's some great advice, man. Great advice.
Yeah. So
I think this is a good stopping point, man. Like, I like to really stick to that hour long. Like I look at Joe Rogan's podcast and I look at it and I'm like 2.5 hours. I don't even start it.
Yeah. I don't.
Like, who's got that much time? That's crazy.
Yeah. I don't. I actually haven't really watched any podcasts and I would actually say that when you're starting a business, one of the best things you can do is just get out and talk to people and say, hey, what do you need?
Yeah.
You've got to really make connections with, if you don't have connections, you don't have business. And so you've just got to get out there and say, hey, what are you doing? And how can I help you? Because honestly, if somebody would have said, hey, I need help, putting in underground sprinkler lines, and then that would have been, more and more work. That's what I'd be doing. I do whatever makes money.
That's all you would be doing. Yeah. I remember like a guy told me when I was younger, he's like, there's nothing lucky about finding opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're out in the marketplace enough, opportunities are coming to you daily, weekly, monthly. He's like, the hard part is recognizing the right opportunity and saying no to the bad ones. Yeah.
And that too. And that was a big lesson for me getting started actually, it's funny. When I first got started, this is a good one. So I know a little bit about electrical work, like housing, electrical and stuff like that. So before I had my LLC and all my stuff, I would answer my phone when any of my friends would call me. I'd be like, hello, Levi's illegal electrical service. And so I was out like wiring houses and stuff. But I mean, that's where the money was, because I didn't have a skid. I had no crappy truck. And, I was like, hey, Levi's illegal electrical service. How may I help you? And I was out doing outlets and just, people needed help doing stuff. And I was just like, yeah, I mean, I need to eat. So it's like, I'll wire a house for lunch. Yeah. So good stuff.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So what's your goals for 2024?
So I have some opportunity to go back into scrap on my own, in control of it. That's what I know. That's where I come from. That's where I have years of experience. That's where I've learned a lot of lessons, from the hard knock situations. So knowing that there's more lessons to be learned in excavation and fuel and things that are going to cost me money, I feel like do what you know, do what you're good at, and focus on something. I know scrap very well. I've got a lot of connections. The equipment I have can easily be applied to it. I think that saying, nope, I do excavation now and I do this, I think that's a bad trait for me going. I could go back to scrap and have an opportunity back in excavation and I'll jump right back out of it. So I think, just being flexible and trying to do the things that make you the most money that I think that's really the only path anybody can ever take. So 2024 is going to be an interesting year for me, just seeing how things progress. I honestly, I don't have any goals other than move forward. And I think, when you're first year of business, I get it. I mean, you want to have goals. I get it. But I'm just like, hey, foot on the gas, make phone calls if you're slow, make phone calls if you have a break, check up with people, but follow the money. Because, I mean, if there's better money to be made, you can buy nicer dirt work equipment if you can make a bunch of scrap. If you can make a bunch of dirt, money in dirt work and you get steady business and scrap, then bounce it back and forth. I mean, anywhere you get paid for doing something, who cares? I mean, what you do.
No, but I think you have to at least enjoy, if not love, what you do. Like, I mean,
yeah, I do get that.
I could not sit in an office looking at spreadsheets all day. Like I would.
Yeah, I get that.
Physically can't do. I mentally cannot do that. Right. So like for me,
you
could pay me $600,000 a year, and I'd be like, nope.
Yeah,
because my quality of life would be miserable.
So for me, when I look at like my goals in 20 years, say I want to be worth 100 million. I look at what I want now second to any other than making more money. So for me, it's like, hey, if you want to make 600 grand a year, sitting and doing spreadsheets, I don't want to do that. But if I'm like, okay, well, I just started this business, I made 100K or 200K or whatever it is. Can I make 600K next year? Probably not. Okay. Everything's up for sale. Bam. I'm sitting in an office because it's like, okay, well, the next year, I quit and I'm doing yards or I'm doing, traveling and fixing equipment or whatever it is. I'm just, my main focus is money. And because it's like, well, if I want to get to, where I want to go, you have to focus on something, but it's like if you have opportunity to make more money right in front of you, like you got to take it, so.
How old are you, Levi?
29.
That's the difference between 46 and 29.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 You've made your money. Now it's time to focus.
The hardest lesson I learned was to say no, and it's been the most beneficial lesson in my life because I can easily get sidetracked with my attention and be like, oh, like we have a great e-com store in the skid steer attachment business. Let's create one for fishing lures. And like, it's a completely different market. Like in my head, it makes sense because it's e-commerce. And next thing you know, everything's falling apart because you've got divided attention. Nothing's getting the right attention. So like for me, like being able to stay in my lane, say no, just get really damn good at what I do.
Yeah, no, that'll help you more than anything. And I get that, but and I would say that you're probably established in that. When you're not established in any given area, it's like, okay, if your feet are not dry anywhere, it's like, okay, we'll go where there's less, there's the least amount of water. Mm-hmm. So, you're just like, well, hell, that doesn't look too deep and I can make some money there. Oh, hey, let's get back to here. There's this guy just called, you really don't have anything solidified. So it's like,
Yeah, but like if your parents didn't stay focused on just scrap and they were bouncing back and forth between scrap, like they're not doing 10 million a year. Like it was dedication and determination.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Yeah, you can't do $10 million a year bouncing around. You cannot.
Right.
But you can do, if you're getting started, you can do $1 million, in revenue, So it's, and also too, I would say that out in these smaller communities, it's difficult to do $1 million business out of one.
Sure.
Say it's sidewalks. There's only so many miles of sidewalk in a smaller community. You've got to do sidewalks and you've got to do, guttering, and then you can have a trucking business. Like, I mean, you kind of have to gather in, a lot of different streams of revenue to get to a point of being big enough to say you do, okay, now I'm going to be a directional driller or a horizontal drilling, for the oil field. And I need $7 million worth of equipment or whatever it is, to get to that point. I feel like personally, just from being around a $10 million business in a small community and seeing how my dad grew it, we started kind of a Mod Podge of different things. So quick backstory. In the early 2000s, my dad had a directional drilling company and a really big and really successful company. I think it was a .com bubble or something, sold it, and then went into this, and he had us boys, which there's 5 of us. And so we were a bunch of knuckleheads. So he got us back where my grandma could help out with my mom. And so he did a tire shop, and he had the same issue that I'm having, where people are just like, yeah, man, harvest is, so I know I bought these 8 combine tires and it was $15,000, but I've got my corn planted. I'm not, and it's like, oh my gosh. And so, which led into, him separating from that, doing some custom hay cutting. So we were bucking bales, and then we started picking up scrap metal and doing demolition and yada, yada, yada. But finally got into having a yard, ran it, did good, sold it, bought 2 more, and then started buying more out in the area that we're in now. So I can see how in the beginning, gather until you get enough for a fire, and then it's like, okay, now let's get some logs, and let's focus on producing more firewood so we can make a bigger fire,
Yeah.
But in the beginning, you're just like, ooh, stick, leaves, twigs, bark,
Yeah, that's, I mean,
Yeah.
to a point, man. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So if I were to say anything to anybody wanting to start a business, don't. No, I'm kidding. It's worth it, but
I'm pretty sure your exact words are like, keep grinding. Like,
just hustle. Yeah, you've got to. There's
you
that.
Gotta want it. Nobody's gonna want it for you.
Yeah. And I would just say that you've got to be very, very, very careful with your partners, with your customers, and with your employees, because you give people access to money that they don't have access to. They will take your money, so you've got to be very, very careful if you start making money with who has access to your funds. And like I said, like, your customers will take it, your client, your employees will suck it out of the account. You just got to be very careful. So, but it's worth it. I mean, you'll make money, but
you're the happiest, go luckiest, jaded business owner I've ever met, man.
Yeah. I got one more story.
You're a walking oxymoron, man.
Yeah,
people are going to screw you. It's a beautiful day out.
But it's great. Okay, one more story. You'll love this. So this was recent. So my dad has sold the scrap business at this point, and I went out on my own and all this stuff. Well, we're doing math, and it's like, where's $90,000 at? There was $90,000 here, and now there's not 90,000. Well, an individual within the company, their friend would come in and drop off, let's say it's an electric motor and an AC radiator to a HVAC unit. Well, here's $1,900 because they brought in 100 pounds of copper and 100 pounds of brass and 50 pounds of this. Here's your check. Well, they were doing that, and then they divvy it up on the back end. Once it went to the pawn shop and cash. So there was a stack of checks in the safe, and they were taking checks out of the bottom of the stack that we hadn't got to yet, because you're writing checks off the top. $1,500, need a little spending cash. Out it went. So, in business, you make tons of money in business. There's so much money out there, but what kills you is just all the people that you work with, just it's difficult. So just be prepared to learn the lessons that are going to change who you are and how you operate, and know that stuff's coming. And also, I would say to anybody, bank having to drag equipment out of your front yard, that taking your trucks, you having to file bankruptcy. If you're to that point, don't be afraid to do what you have to do to be able to reestablish yourself, because once you've reestablished yourself, you won't do it again, or you'll learn the next lesson or the next lesson. So, don't be embarrassed or feel that you're the bad guy, or you've done something wrong, or you miscalculated, or it's, me. Just know that it's like, hey, welcome to the journey. You can at least now tell your kids that story, and they won't make that mistake. Not just being able to watch my dad in a $10 million business. I know now to be very, very, very weary of what people say versus what people do. People will tell you, "Oh man, it's gold. It's gold. It's gold, and there's flies, and it's a pile of shit." And they're like, "No, it's gold. You need it for this." And it's like, okay, and you just
Yeah.
People are predatory, and they'll use you and for their funding and for their promotion, and you just and then like I said, if you get burned, you get burned, and they got to come drag the shit out of your driveway. Hey, come and get it.
Yeah, just figure out how to minimize the risk, and like there's always risk in everything we do, right? But it doesn't have to be standing on a cliff risk. Like it can be minimized and mitigated, and
it can. But if you don't know those lessons that are going to change you and how you operate, when you have to learn that tough lesson, and if it's crippling or if it's like it's everybody's been, a lot of people have been there. You got it worse than the rest of us. You're not the bad guy. You've done what you can. It's not the end of the world, because I've had a lot of people and a lot of friends that get into the mindset that I'm just not the guy. I'm just not this, and I'm not. And it's like, let's not go down that route. You're perfectly fine. You got burned, or you made the mistake. Don't do it again.
Yeah.
Treat people right and don't do it again.
I like that. Treat people right. It's good.
Don't do
good advice, man. Life's pretty simple, right? Treat people right.
Yeah. So
awesome.
Right,
well, Levi, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today, man. I really enjoyed your story. I love your outlook on life and business, and like even when life like kicks you, you're just like, all right, pivot, readjust.
Yeah.
Where are we heading off to now? Like you got your chin up high, and nobody's gonna knock it down. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yep. Cool, man. Well, this is my first podcast I've been on.
Nice, man. Well, welcome to the podcast community. So
welcome in.
Welcome.
Yeah. Well, if you're ever out my way, there's dollar beers. So
that right there has me sold, man. We'll have to figure out how to do a demo days in Kansas and Garden City on a Wednesday night, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah. Thursday nights. Okay.
Dollar
beer. Jacks.
Perfect. Well, guys, if you're listening to this and like you think you have a great story that you want to share, get a little uncomfortable and be on a podcast, head over to Skid Steer Nation, send us an email. Let's talk. Let's put you on the show and see what you can do. Everyone else out there listening, right below the logo on Spotify, right below the episodes on Apple, that little place you can give us 5 stars and you can rate us. We've been doing this for a year now, and you blue collar workers are tough to crack, man. We got like 6-10 reviews. We should have a lot more than that. So if you enjoy the content, please take 2 seconds, find a place to give us 5-star reviews. That is how Spotify and Apple rewards us, by showing us to more potential listeners. Again, we do this all for free. We don't have any outside sponsors paying the bill here. So this is all just so you guys can get the best knowledge in the workplace. And well, I guess I can talk about skid steer attachments too. So until the next week, guys, hands on the sticks. And I don't even know where to go from there. So we're just going to leave it at that. I don't have a witty end line today. So take care, guys.